Hey, good morning. How are you? So my name is Paul, and I have a group called Awakening You, or the Awakening You Network. It's awakeningyou.net on the web. And basically, I'm a person that has awakened quite a bit. And you'll see it in my eyes and my self-love. I wear this ankh. This is a symbol of the Isis and the Temple of Isis. And much of what I believe and teach came from these awakening principles. I've had a pretty struggle-filled, I'd checked off all the boxes on trauma that I could have probably had a childhood of other things, and I grew and shaped and came like a phoenix out of those energies. I thought I had the best childhood ever and the best parents until I realized that your parents should not emotionally entangle you because they have no self-love for themselves, that they shouldn't yell and scream at you in love about your vegetables and threaten violence with you. And then don't even get me started about relationships and the calling in of mother figures and stuff like that I had to heal through these other people and then having to face them myself. So in going through all this messy, burning down, torturing myself, etc., I have learned quite a few things. And I'm willing to give these things freely to people. Go on my Facebook page, Paul Hanrieder, Hanrieder. This will be posted here, but I'm the leader of the Awakening You movement. And you'll see a lot. You'll see my awakening journey. Unfortunately, Facebook's about to delete all of them. Anything over 30 days old will no longer even be allowed on the platform. So I'm hoping to find another place to put all these things. But so let's begin. You came here for the juicy stuff. Well, the juicy stuff is this. There are 5 awakening principles, or I call them the 5 pillars of a stable foundation. What are those? These aren't magic. They are self-realization at their depth. So the first one, number 1, self-responsibility. Most people are like, oh, what do you mean by self-responsibility? I'm responsible. I deal with my shit or whatever. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. So do you point the finger at other people and say, they did this thing to me, I'm a victim of? The minute you use the word victim, you became disempowered. You gave your power to the perpetrator. The system, the world, the reality says that I'm always getting hurt. You're a powerful, powerful being. Unfortunately, you can never be hurt unless you give your power away. So that thing that is your worst nemesis, your worst pain, your worst suffering, etc., is actually here. Instead of happening to me, it's happening for me. We have to make a fundamental shift. And this will be a test on anything that's happening in your life. If something shows up and you don't like it, you're going to ask, is this happening to me or for me? And if you're asking to me, go inside. Start to look at yourself and find out why you've given your power to that thing. It's happening to me because he's my boss and I have to give him power, and he's a real asshole, but I have to do that to survive because I need a job. Okay? True. In your belief, and the job is very important and your survival is very important, but what have you given up for your survival? You could quit that job and find another job. Oh, but that's too much work and too hard. Be self-responsible. If you're not meant to be in that job, the universe and your higher self and things will conspire to give you a better job. That's simple. If you're, oh, he keeps hurting me, or I'm always meeting the wrong kind of men, wrong kind of women, whatever, you're pointing the finger outside yourself. That's happening to me. Well, guess what? There's 3 freaky fingers here that are pointing back at you. Everything that's happening like that you say to you is actually happening for you. What in your beliefs, what in your past story, what in your past program is basically propagating the same story that puts you in an infinite loop of getting the same thing over and over and over again. And I'll warn you, a little spoiler here, it may go back to mother and father and what they poured in your ears. Up until the age of 7, we basically listen to everything our parents say. That's what love is, codependency and hurting and supporting and loving somebody outside yourself, and to the point that they love you back, but then you're struggling because you never get the love back. You will defeat yourself all day long. That's what not being self-responsible is. So ultimately, it's going to be a test of, am I looking at the bigger picture? Am I looking at my stories? Am I looking at my programs? Am I looking at, if I call myself a victim, you're already lost. You've lost your power. If you say, this is happening for me, I don't know why this hurts, you can use tools like Ho'oponopono. I am sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. Just keep reciting it over and over and over again. And something will shift. Ask yourself the question, why does this keep happening for me? What am I supposed to learn? Ask that question, the strangest thing will happen. One day you'll be waking up in the morning and you'll be walking down to your car, completely no mind at that point, and it's like, your mother did that to you, or your dad did that to you. And then you're going to have to go look at that piece. You're not going to have to heal it directly with them or talk to them. Well, it's your choice if you do. But just the awareness and being awakened to the fact that that's maybe all you could expect will change everything. So self-responsibility is the most critical first one. Never be the victim. Always be the master of your own reality. Second one is accountability. This one's a hard one for people. You have a pile of trauma, unexpressed emotions, basically a volcano that's waiting to happen. And you're going to run into people all throughout your life. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's something, but they're going to trigger you into some emotion and you don't know why it is, but you just want to burn them to the ground right then and there. You're angry, you're upset or whatever, and you don't even know why. Could be the simplest thing, but guess what? That simplest thing reminded you of a situation. Maybe that's what your dad did just before he got angry and spanked you, or maybe that's what your mom does, or maybe your ex-partner did. You ultimately have to be accountable to what shows up in you. Are you a volcano that traumatizes everybody around because you don't want to deal with your shit, and then you project it on everybody else and blame them and they're the cause and that's all their fault and blah, 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 blah? We all do it. Own it. Circle back to you. Accountability. Okay, why am I feeling this? Sometimes if they're triggering you, the best thing that you can say, and it may look a little weird, but it will save you so much trouble and so much pain. You just say, hold on, something's coming up. I need to go over in the corner and I'm going to come back and I'll talk to you before I explode all over you. And you go into the corner and you start looking, or maybe you leave the room or exit the space, and basically you go home and you lay in bed and you cry and you feel all this emotion and all these bubbles of all these energies that are no longer serving you, and you basically look at it until it's complete. Accountability, you could also call it emotional intelligence. I learned this a long time ago. If you blow up on somebody and basically torch them to the ground or whatever, you are creating trauma. You're not taking responsibility for the thing that's showing up in you, and it may not even belong to that person. It may destroy a marriage, it may destroy a relationship, etc. It's all because we're not being accountable. We are not owning what's showing up in our experience. That thing, more than likely, is exactly what you needed to figure out in yourself. But if you're now projecting at that person and saying they're wrong and they're doing something, they may be the greatest gift in your life, and you can't even recognize it in that moment because you're really angry with your mom or your dad or some past experience, and now you're projecting it on them, and you're not taking the gift, which maybe can't be seen in that exact moment. Sometimes the darkest dark or the worst triggering thing is the very thing that's teaching us. We can also look at people as our teachers. Somebody that's in their wounding and whatever will attract people that have either opposite or like vibrations into our life. So if they're like, we'll probably be codependent with them, and we'll just keep propagating the fact that I'm hurt and I'm wounded and this is suffering and this is all I deserve. But if it's different and that person's coming in like a boss that's really angry and yells all the time and is projecting on you, he may have a wound, I'm assuming a male boss, he may have a wound with his own parents. And basically he's going to come to you and project that on you because that's all he can expect and that's how the world works or whatever, kind of beating you on the head. And eventually one day you're going to either rise up or walk away or end it. You may say, excuse me, you don't get to talk to me like that. And they're like, what the hell just happened? Because you are the medicine as much as they are the medicine for you. So if you start to look for why is this happening for me and to me, you may be able to get underneath, you may be able to start setting boundaries. The universe is constantly poking us with stuff that will take us struggle, and we'll go home and it's like, oh, my boss did it to me again and I feel like that. How does that feel? No, you stand up and you start to say, no, excuse me, boss, you can't talk to me like that. I have some rights. The employee rights says this or whatever. Do some research, study for you, start to set some boundaries and say, no, you can't expect me to come in early and not get paid for it and blah, 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 whatever the game is. But they're trying to project their power on you so they feel better about themselves. What a waste of time. Okay, so accountability is we feel stuff. What do we do with what we feel? Observe, and be curious. This is critical. Almost, I feel it in my body. There's a part of me that's standing up here and saying, why are you so freaking angry right now? What are you going to do? And there's a part of me inside my physical that's going like this, but my energy is up here because we're forcing out of our body. We get disassociated. We start to observe. Get curious. Why is this happening? Ooh, this is not you. Why are you so angry? Why are you on fire? Why are you burning? You may not be able to solve it in that moment, but you can start to ask the questions. Why is this happening? And then you can step back. Like I said, put your hand up and say, excuse me, I got to go deal with this. Maybe it'll take you a week to get through it, but it's far better than what would have happened if you just sat in that energy and exploded all over them. And then you feel bad about yourself and you feel bad and you got to make up with that person and you created a trauma in them that they didn't even deserve. So what are you doing accountably with your energy? The next one after that is vulnerability. We all have wounds. And if you try and hide your wounds and say, I'm weaker, I'm smaller, I'm lesser, etc., because you think that's what's safe with people, they'll feel your lie. They'll know that you're off and you'll be an unexploded bombshell of this thing. It's like, okay, I've got a trauma. I've got a rape trauma. I've got a violence trauma. I got hit from behind in a car. I've got whatever, or my dad did this, or my mom did that, or whatever. If you don't talk openly about it, you can never be witness to it. And it's very critical to be witnessed through other people so that you can let it go. Because there's a thing inside of you said, that should have never happened, and that was so much suffering, and I hurt, and I'm pain, and I'm really angry, and blah, blah, blah. If you don't talk about it, how are you ever going to express the energies, express the emotions, express the pain? And sometimes you'll talk about stuff that doesn't even make sense because we're lineage trauma and our parents have trauma that's been put into us and we don't even know why we have money wounds and all this kind of stuff. Just talk about it. I don't know why I can't make money and why am I blocked? Well, money doesn't grow on trees, son. Cancel, cancel, cancel. You got that put into your ear at less than 7 and it makes money hard and effort, and you watch your dad go to work and be away from you and not spend time with you. Okay, vulnerability. Oh, I was really sad as a child because I didn't spend time with my dad. I wanted to play baseball with him and I wanted to play soccer with him and all this kind of stuff, but he was never around. Well, what story have you created? What's the thing that says all men are like that or all dads are like that? And we got to look at it. We got to interpret it now with our adult mind, because this is key with all of this. A lot of this stuff was put into our subconscious as a protector before we could consciously interpret it. Our parents, what they told us up until age of 7, for us to be able to walk, and we're just a magnet. We just soak in everything that's going on. So everything bad, everything traumatizing, etc., that was going on in your world up until about age 7, we have no filter. Ooh, I have no filter. I got all this shit in my mind that's coming from a 7-year-old. Why do people act like children all the time? Because they are a child. They're replaying a program and traumas and stuff that was given to us from our parents. So being vulnerable starts to talk about it. Put yourself around other people that are starting to adult themselves, starting to interpret and become aware. This is what awakening is. It's like you have a story playing in your head that you don't even understand. It's from 7 backwards. Do you really want to be ruled by a 7-year-old child? And their wounds and their fears and stuff without any interpretation? You're an adult now. Start choosing. Start creating your reality, not from what that child got and that trauma that you got, from truth. So being vulnerable, talking about it, go find a circle where people can join. If you want to join a circle, I'm going to have circles. And you'll just sit down and you'll talk about your stuff. You'll have 10 or 15 minutes to be able to talk about it. And I will guarantee you if there's like 30 people in that circle, half those people had that experience as well. Because it's in the collective and it's happened. And just talking about it and explaining how you got out of it and maybe what you learned, etc., from it is the medicine for somebody else. It's something that will heal them. They will come and talk to you. You may become a healer in that area because we all pick things that are hard. Usually the wounded healer is how we start because we're dealing with something and then we become experts in that area. So vulnerability is critical, especially in a held space with other people. And you can cry and express and whatever. That's the best thing that you could ever do. And other people watching you cry and express is basically going to heal them. And they may cry and express at the same time when they're not even capable of it. So the next one is directness. What do I mean by directness? Society has told us to please people. Do not be direct. Hope for what you want, even though you're not getting it, and then be sad and upset because you never got it. So it's like you go on a date with a girl or whatever, and you need sex or whatever as a man. This is very common. And it's kind of nudge, nudge, wink, wink, or an expectation that 3 dates and buying her meals and stuff like that might lead to sexuality, when really we just need to be direct and say, hey, you're really cute and I'm really attracted to you. How would that look if we were to pursue something? She might be like, holy crap, that's weird or whatever, but all of a sudden it's on the table. It's not being assessed. And when you're indirect, people have no idea what you're talking about or what you're hinting at because you haven't been true. It's in your energy, and maybe they'll feel it, and it feels really needy and angry and messy, and they'll run away for no reason, and you won't even know why because that energy was being projected. Where if you're direct and say, hey, I'm a really sexual being, touch is my love language or whatever, would you like that? Or somebody's being really awful to you and it's like, hey, you could be nicer or whatever. Instead say, excuse me, you don't talk to me like that. They're like, holy crap, but there's a power inside that happens from directness. You will now know that they know for sure what the truth is, and you're not hoping that they can kind of guess and figure it out. You will know, and they will know. And then you can also make the offer, if you don't understand what I mean, let's talk about it. Because maybe they've never felt directness before, and it's just like, ugh, and it scares the hell out of me, and maybe they need some time. But directness will set you free, and it will guarantee that other people know what you mean, and there's no kind of questioning if that's what you meant, or is there something else, or maybe they're just angry or whatever. No, directness clears the slate. The final one is communication. How much do you not communicate every day? It kind of goes hand in hand with directness, but communication is like, let's go back to that example of that boss or whatever. It's like, excuse me, boss. Instead of maybe setting a boundary, just say, excuse me, boss. You basically shut me down every time you shout like that. Can you talk with an even voice? How come you're so calm and I just projected all this? I want your energy, and that's what the boss is feeling. When you're like, excuse me, I just like to be talked at like a normal person, or not at, with, maybe better. And then they're like, well, this is weird. It feels comfortable, but maybe I'll get some... maybe I'll be more efficient. Maybe I'll be less frustrated at work, and maybe I'll do better and I'll be able to handle things quicker. Why are you telling me all these things? Well, because that's what I need, and maybe you don't know what my needs are, and your needs are different than mine, so I'm going to tell you. Communication. Start communicating. How do you communicate vulnerably what's going on in your life, etc.? So ultimately, these 5 principles, you can use them every day in everything that you do. And when things aren't working out, test against them. Was I self-responsible? Hey, am I being accountable? Am I being vulnerable? Am I being direct? Am I communicating? If you test against those same things, you're going to realize that you're not doing one of them. Or if you're doing them all, maybe it's another lesson, and you're going to have to dig deeper and see sometimes they're tangled. The lessons are tangled. It's like fear and anger and frustration all tangled together, and each one of them come from a different thing, and you're going to have to unwind them all. It's like a ball of yarn. Ultimately, if we can start following these 5 principles, it will change your life. Now, to make that even better, and that's why I want to create a community, imagine you surround yourself with people in those 5 principles. You don't know what's in your shadow. That's what we call shadow work. Shadow basically is the stuff that was poured in our ear as a kid, the stories that we made. We do not know we're even doing because it's coming out of our subconscious mind. It's in our shadow. It doesn't mean it's evil and dark or whatever. It's just negative things come out of our own head. So we're ultimately doing our shadow work. The best place to have that is either in a relationship or in a community. So if you have a lover or whatever, and they're like, hey, you're really angry all the time, what's going on or whatever, that's in your shadow. It might trigger the fuck out of you or whatever. And if that partner you can trust enough, they're going to say, well, I hear you say that whenever I talk about your dad, or I hear you say that whenever I talk about work. And they're going to say, what's going on? And then they're going to witness you, and you're going to hear it, and they maybe can reflect to you and say, well, it sounds like your dad, even though you're talking about your job, but your dad did those same things to you. What's going on with the past and your dad? Well, my dad was a really angry man. And well, remember, he was a child filled with shit from his dad, and it went into his ears, and he was probably just reacting, but he didn't have the awareness yet to awaken and no longer hurt or cause that trigger in you. And you grew it as a child, and you're probably given to your kids as well. So awareness is key. This is what awakening is. These things are happening. My boss is the same thing. My ex-lover is the same thing. Guess what? We are all unwinding from a collective reality that wasn't serving us. It basically bound us into density and to have really heavy experiences, karma, etc. And basically we're rising out of it through awareness, through awakening. So using these principles, the final one, so if you pardon me, if you're in community, can you imagine if somebody can say, yeah, you're angry all the time, or you keep saying I hope for, or I'm not worthy of, or I'm stupid, or something like that. Cancel. You say cancel to defeat anything, but anything that comes out of our mouth or is a belief or is a story coming out of our head, it is creating for you, whether you like it or not, and it will bind you into a cage until you finally realize that the cage is your own creation, in your own mind and in your own subconscious, and we can get out of that. There's other tools like breath work and other things that can very rapidly pop us out of that cage, and that's work that I do in my community. The final one, and by having community of all of this kind of stuff, and people are constantly reflecting for you from their experience, and I've had that same experience. I know what it feels like to have a dad like that, or whatever. Do you want to sit down and talk? Now you have a community of people, of like-minded people that are able to give you the answers, maybe to speed you along so that you're no longer trapped, because we will find out there's probably 24, maybe, that's probably even high, different stories that we're all bound by that have played through everybody. The selection boxes were not huge. And in a community, you're going to find probably 12 different people that have the exact same thing or a version of it. And the more you talk with them, the more you share, the more you have a potluck with them, all this kind of stuff, you will unbind yourself from all this stuff. So this is why community is also important. Like-minded people, a relationship with a lover that maybe has this awareness as well. Where are you going to find that? In a community. Beautiful. The final one is integrity. Now, this may be seen as only a masculine characteristic, but it's also in the feminine, because feminine have a masculine side. But unfortunately, they've been taught that they can dodge integrity. It's what I call the toxic masculine, where feminine are embodying masculine traits, but they don't follow through with their word. They don't follow truth because some of the feminine characteristics conflict, and then they just decide that it's easy to not follow through. Integrity is also how much of your love and your energy is inside your body. If you're giving and loving people outside yourself all day long in codependence and all this kind of stuff, guess what? You're waiting for somebody to give that love back, even though you gave it freely to them, and you're getting mad and hating them and being really angry. And you maybe 10 relationships ago, or maybe with your mother. My mother was very wounded as a child. I gave her all my love, and then I had to eke and save because she had no love for herself. She gave it away because she was traumatized as a child. This happens all the time. Your dad may be the same thing. My dad's dad had a heart attack at age 12, and basically he had to grow up almost immediately and take care of a farm and his 4 brothers and sisters. What insanity is that? So these things will hold and wear on us until we completely even move on in our lineage and forward if we don't deal with it in this lifetime. So we are born, through shamanism, it says we are born with the ability to have the medicine for 10 generations back and 7 generations forward. So you're healing the lineage timeline, all the bullshit that's going on, by having this awareness, using these principles to start to awaken yourself. So they've been handed to you on a silver platter. Now, I hope you would take those Watch this video a couple times, write them down, start to implement them in your life. It'll make a huge change. This was learned at great pain and suffering, and I'm not asking for anything. I just want more people that can be in this integrity and in these 5 principles so that I can better embody it myself and have friends and family and community and relationships that embody all these same things. So this is the Awakening You principles. I will end it here. If there's any questions, you can put them in the notes below, and eventually this is going to be a requirement to enter the community. So there'll be a questionnaire that you're going to have to fill in to prove that you've listened to them all, and now you're aware of them, and people are going to be authorized in every circumstance to hold you in self-responsibility, in accountability, in vulnerability, in directness, and in communication. If we don't have that in community, guess what? People will falter and splash and project and do all this stuff. But if we have a community where you can call people out, you have to do it in integrity, with niceness, without triggers from your accountability, you're going to get a gift. It may be hard for the first couple days or weeks or whatever. Maybe you'll run away. But ultimately, you will be a more evolved, aware person, and your life's going to get much better and easier. That's what these principles will give you. It'll keep the struggle out. It'll keep you self-accountable, and amazing stuff will happen. So, I love you. Namaste. Thank you. And good luck following these principles. Thank you.